Oh,
Yeah, well, let's go. We gotta go anyway, Jim. We're way behind.
okay.
Okay, so start your recording.
Started.
Okay. Thank you, and once again, I apologize to all the residents at home that are tuned in. We're having a bit of technical difficulty with the system, trying to get it working, so it'll be recorded, so you can go back and check it out on the live stream Facebook at Town of Marathons if it doesn't work at home right now. So again, I'll call the meeting to order now at 4:17 PM. And a reminder that we switch off our mobile devices. And we're all good. So as usual, I'll call the meeting to order and ask the question of the agenda for this meeting be accepted and circulated. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Suki. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? I'm just gonna add in with the verbal reports, the NOMA report from Roma. All in favor? Excuse me, Carrie, thank you very much. Any conflicts of interest today? Hearing none. You have a motion here that council hereby adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council were held on Monday, January 9th, 2023, as circulated amended. Moved by Councilor Sugi, second by Councilor Lake, and I thank you very much for operating in that meeting. And I did find out something, and I have to ask a question around this, just for clarity. When a mayor is away and tuned into a meeting virtually, are they allowed to not chair a meeting? We talked about this in Toronto, so we have to get clarity on that.
That's not spelled out in the legislation.
Okay,
So, yeah, we do need to get clarity on.
we did talk about it as an administrative thing, just to understand.
It was really odd to be in that chair with you on the screen.
No, and you did a great job, it's just that for the actual, under the act process legislatively, can we do that legally? So we can get clarity on that for the next meeting, that'd be great. Just because will happen again and we'll be coming and going and doing virtual stuff, so. And I noticed that the clerk has also identified that we all have to fill in forms now if we're away doing a virtual meeting, just so that we're all on board, okay? All in favor? Carried, thank you. And this evening we have the Staff Sergeant Cam Ducharme, sorry, we talked about Mr. Duhame earlier, sorry about that, Cam. Marathon Repeat Detachment Commander will be here and giving us an overview, verbal update of the issues that's happening with the new OPP in our community and throughout the catchment area. On down, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, whoever it would be. I'll start off with basically a very brief, broad overview of the detachment, and then maybe we can just have a discussion if you want, and any questions I guess have, we can go from there. All right. So again, my name is Cam Ducharme. I'm the Staff Sergeant Detachment Commander with the OPP out of Marathon. For those that aren't aware, so Marathon actually has two detachments. So Marathon is our host detachment and Manitowoc is our satellite detachment. Marathon is a Section 10 under the Police Services Act, meaning we have a contract, whereas Manitowoc is not, so it's a 5.1. So there are slight differences there, but overall, again, we're still just one big detachment. So overall, we have 29 officers, and that is split between all those detachments, right? So that includes myself, so one staff sergeant, 4 sergeants and 24 constables. Amongst those constables, we have a variety of specialties as well. So we have crisis negotiators, emergency response team members, and talk auxiliary technicians, scenes of crime officers, so a variety of things. So just those 24 are not geared towards frontline service, right? So they are spread across a variety of issues. As far as for our borders, so we do have to the west of us, our border goes all the way to the Steel River Bridge, which is approximately 50 kilometers west of Marathon. Heading east, we actually almost go all the way to White River. So anyone familiar with the east end, there's a Thunder Bay District line out there, just outside White River. We actually go all the way to there. So we cover about 150 KS17. Of course, we cover 614 up to Manitowoc and 3,000, so who knows how many kilometers of back roads and everything else like that, right? We work closely with APS, so Anishinaabeg Police Service. They police the First Nation territories of Pick, Mulward, and Pick River. We work closely with them. We offer them any assistance when they need as far as for backup or against maybe a specialty thing like a scenes crime officer or a talk auxiliary technician to help them out with that. And again, they're great to help us out as well. It's a great relationship. If we're short and need a hand, they help us out as well. So it's fantastic there. As far as for the new detachment, 15,000 square feet. We've been in there just over 2 years now. It's fantastic. You know, if anyone had been in our old detachment, it was quite cramped for the manpower that we had, right? So with the new detachment, we've got some space to work, space for gear. It's all good. There's no issues there at all. That's about all I have. So again, I welcome any questions or conversations you want to have.
Well, thank you for that. And, you know, when you mentioned about the detachment itself, I mean, I visited Ben many times and, I don't like, my new counselors would like to take a visit out there. I know you, Council Lake's been out there, haven't you? Have you?
Good.
So you had a great opportunity to go and visit, you know, Cam and take a look at the facility. It's a great facility and, really well equipped. So I'll ask anybody if they have any questions of, Cam, Council.
Question. So some things I try and remember clearly, it's come up in a few of our meetings in the past about like community engagement and community safety and whatnot. I remember like when I was in high school, which was like forever ago. The OPP officer used to come into the school, present on, you know, drug awareness and, you know, if you're out partying with your friends, somebody offers you this, stay away from that sort of thing, right? Just if that's something you guys still do or look into doing.
Yep, so we do have a community safety officer. Unfortunately, he's away right now. I'm hopeful that he'll be back to work at some point in time soon. So that was his primary role as the community safety officer. In saying that, since he's been gone, every officer has been given a specific school and to be their liaison, right? So again, to get to know the students, get to know the teachers, principals, and again, if there are any issues or training courses, things like that, talks that they want to have to engage those specific officers, and again, to get that speech done. And hopefully our community safety officer will be back. I'm very hopeful of that.
Council.
Yeah, and maybe just a question, for council, as we think about maybe a new industry coming and a big population boom. From the policing side of things, what do you want to see in terms of community development, or what's the advice that maybe you've seen around communities that have these sudden booms? What should we be looking for? What maybe should we as counselors be looking at to, like programming for youth or, you know?
Yeah, well, and it's good engagement, I think, with those community partners that are coming in, right? We're seeing that in Greenstone now as well. Greenstone's obviously seeing that as well, right? And they've been engaged with the mine as well, just to ensure that, you know, as far as for, let's say, just their workers, safety protocols are in place, security is in place to ensure that property crime, whatever else doesn't go up, right? But again, then it'd be up to the council as well to think about, like you said, maybe if there's town programs that you want to have for new youth in town or something else like that. But again, it's just, I think it's engaging that partner as soon as they get here to ensure that we're all on the same page and that we don't want crime or anything else to go up in the community.
Yeah, and certainly I like where that detachment is,
Mhm.
because it just feels like you come into town, it's right there, there's no way in, there's no way out, you know, I just feels protected, I don't know, feels protected that it's there, and it sends a little bit of message, right, that
Perfect.
we're watching.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think Cam made it very clear, like, and we've had the discussions already with Generation, and we had a great, introduction and relationship with Ballard and the next bridge in regards to that, 300+ person camp. And there was very few, any incidents at all. And I think they had a very good protocol there as well, Cam. We talked about.
And again, it's that engagement, right? And I can say that, I mean, if you look at our numbers, and obviously you see them with the police services board, they did not go up dramatically, even though we had a substantial amount of increase in the community, right? So again, just goes to that engagement. Like you said, if we have a good relationship with them, we can definitely nip those issues before they even start.
Absolutely. And part of the consultation process with our First Nations neighbors, that was a concern as well in regards to the increase in population, and especially mostly male. And it was really good, and we had a great relationship with them, and I think CEO and myself has great opportunity in discussions with Generation as well already around that concept about the camp and especially the construction part of it. Once you get into the operational aspect, the individuals are here a longer period of time. It's almost, they might be still transient, but it's almost like home, second home.
Yeah.
There we go. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure, Councilor.
How do you guys balance like patrolling the town versus the highway? Like, is there officers that only are on the highway?
And that'll be generally dictated up to the sergeant as well, right? So we do obviously want to ensure that the town is still patrolled properly. So again, if you want to divvy up your manpower by half, right? And again, half of them dictated towards town, half of them go towards the highway as well. And again, just remembering how vast our territory is. Like I said, when we have 150 kilometers, it doesn't take long during a snowstorm to now all of a sudden you have people all over the place, right? And then we'll call in Manitouage, or we're assisting APS. And so it's always a juggling game with your limited manpower, as any agency is right now, right? And trying to ensure that they're there. But again, the sergeants are always making sure that we have enough manpower in the communities as well, not just patrolling the highway. Again, unless there's something urgent out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it very rarely happens that we're not patrolled. I mean, 95% of the time we have officers always in town. As Cam mentioned, unless there's some major incident that's happened on the highway, we need all all forces there. That rarely happens to the point where the coverage is not there. And we've had a great relationship with the OP and the coverage. And again, through the police service board, through me as the chair, we had great discussions, and the deputy clerk is also part of that as a secretary. The CEO has been coming to the meetings to discuss what are the needs, what are the concerns in the community. You know, whether it's, crime rating or, beanies or dirt bikes or whatever the case might be. There was a major bust of illicit drugs not too long ago, in early, mid-January. Those are the kind of things that you want. We need people to make sure they feel comfortable and continue to reach out both to the detachment as well as to us and say, hey, I'm concerned about this part of town, this kind of activity, whatever that might be, right? And that's what the police are there for, right? And it's not just something that comes out of a quick drop in. It's about investigating and following through on all that process. Anything else you can? So I want to take the opportunity to thank you. We invited Cam down, and I think more regular meetings, just keeping us up to speed. And just what's going on in the community is key, and about the policing aspect. And again, if anybody in the community feels that they want to reach out to you, by all means, you're there and you're accessible. And all of our officers are pretty well accessible around town. It's just, getting to meet them and saying hi. And I encourage through the police service for our officers to get out and talk to people in the community and then participate in all aspects. Right?
We're very fortunate. Most of our officers here have been here several years. This is a great community. Nobody really leaves. We do have a couple new officers, but again, for the most part, officers have been here for well over a decade. Because again, it is such a great place to live and work and everything else, right? So most of you should know them. If not, and again, don't be afraid to engage them if you see them out. Chat them up. Again, most of us love to talk, right? So don't be afraid to do that.
No, I thank you for coming out, and I appreciate that. And again, anybody has any concerns, questions, we're working through. We've been frustrated through the police services board to fill that provincial appointment many times, discussing with the leadership. And now that I'm on the Ontario Association of Police Service Board, I've been pushing for that organization to get this resolved. They didn't even know that we were not having an appointment for over 3 years, almost 4 years. This term and longer. So it's like, it's frustrating, but we have a municipal appointment, a new person, and we're waiting to see if we can get that filled for the provincial plan. But we're still waiting on the community safety plan and how's that looking, what's the board structure look. So once we get all that rolled out, we'll be good. So we'll see you in February for our actual board meeting, and then we'll go from there. But anytime council wants to reach out, by all means, and if you both would like to go visit attachment, reach out to Cam anytime.
You guys know where I am.
Okay.
That's right.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming out.
Thanks, Ken.
Have a good evening.
Okay, enjoy your evening. Okay, up next, we have council report on the association's visits with Councillor Suki and CEO and myself attending Roma. And of course, as always, we go down to discuss the concerns that Marathon has. And we're looking at some various aspects of items we'd like to bring to their attention. As always, we share this with council. Council's ideas are brought forward, and this was no different. We met with Minister Rickford and talked about the Peninsula Harbor Port Authority, about how we get some funding for the business model there. Very receptive, very open to that. Thank them and for his work on the Marathon Palladium project as well, and that was really good. And of course, CEO can highlight the natural gas aspect of that, because that's basically his bailiwick. We've been working on that for many years. Had the opportunity also to meet with Minister of Infrastructure in regards to the 8 active living centers we talked about through our budget process. It is frustrating, and they keep pushing back on the government, saying that the federal government has come to the table with more funding. We'll continue to push, and I'm going to let the CEO talk about the presentation made in regards to the utilizing of mining taxation to build communities aspect, that we're being creative and thinking outside the box is key. Also had an opportunity to meet with the Deputy Minister and Training College Universities, talked about the idea of having a training facility out here in Marathon, working with government, both Marathon, Terrace, Scriber, Manitowoc, White River, First Nation communities, the college and the government and industry coming together to taking our grade 12 students, if they want, and have an opportunity to do some training in heavy equipment and do it right here in our community. So we're going to push on that and see if we can get some traction there and get some funding model that can identify that. And I'll let you two highlight that in regards to that, and I'll come back to Nova. So if Councillor Suki wanted to highlight what he thought of the meetings.
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think how the mayor mentioned bringing forward the mining tax to Infrastructure Ontario and Mr. Rickford, they kind of see the hamster wheel spinning in their head, kind of a forward-thinking model, and, you know, we're just not going there asking for more money, and they're saying no, came to them with the creative solution, and you can kind of tell they're scratching their heads and sort of liked it. Another thing, I think worth highlighting, the three of us sat in that session regarding, the chief and, you know, establishing a relationship with your First Nation partners and your First Nation communities. As, the mayor has mentioned to Mrs. Korchinski and I afterwards, how we're well ahead of that, right? We've already done that. They've established a profit corporation with the Port Authority, so, you know, kind of gave ourselves a pat on the back with, in terms of, you know, partnering with your First Nation community.
Good, thanks for that. I know Mr. Skorchinski would highlight a bit more than that.
Yeah, just a couple of items with respect to the natural gas project. I had an opportunity to represent that to Minister Rickford. You know, and very much, you know, stated our business case for, you know, a round 3 of natural gas funding for Ontario that more specifically focuses on virtual pipelines, which we would be. Obviously, we're never going to have a pipeline on the Canadian Shield or through the Canadian Shield. And he was very receptive to that. He indicated we went with Minister Smith, the Minister of Energy, at the AMO conference. He didn't say there would be a round 3, but certainly he was well aware that our project was funded by NOHFC, and asked that we follow up with his office with respect to that project. So I think there's still certainly some hope from our end that there's going to be a round 3. We don't need a lot of money to make our project go. You know, probably $10 million, so we're spread over 5 communities. So I think we still have a sound business case there. And as the mayor alluded to, as well as Councillor Suki, we presented a concept paper around the utilization of mining taxes. And really what we built it off of, you know, traditionally mining taxes just go into consolidated revenue fund for the province of Ontario. And we used the example of NFMC, the Forest Management Corporation, which the town of Marathon, you know, originally wrote the business plan for, based on the concept of, you know, stumpage fees traditionally went into consolidated revenue, but through the NFMC, they're redirected into local and Indigenous economic development. And both the Ministry of Infrastructure as well as Northern Development were intrigued with the concept, in that it was, you know, we weren't asking for funding. You know, and we've specifically brought forward the Active Living Center and the ability to utilize a mortgage to build the facility and ultimately repay that mortgage through, you know, if it was cents per ton mined or something along those lines. So both ministries asked that we follow up and have further discussion on those items. And since then, we didn't meet with the Ministry of Mines, but we've also submitted a request to meet virtually with Minister Perry and present that concept. So I think we got traction with our projects. As usual, we brought down solutions, and weren't asking for the province to give us a handout. And I think the other thing, just, you know, at the CAO level, in meeting with my colleagues down there, which we haven't seen each other in some time, is you know, what the budgets and the challenges facing municipal budgets look like in 2023. And you know, it's not unheard of to see budgets coming in at 8 and 10% approvals this year, just because of the cost of living has increased. The consumer price index is 6.5 for Ontario. Energy costs are extremely high. You know, we talked about our budget meeting, our insurance cost 25% increase over last year. So those are, you know, when you try and factor in development projects and you know, community development, it makes it extremely challenging. So, you know, we saw that today. We got some work to do with the budget, but I think overall for us, it was a good conference. We got a lot of traction with the port. We'll be submitting an application to NOHFC shortly. And once again, you know, we brought forward projects that are going to move our community forward.
Yeah, and as Councillor Suki mentioned about the visiting of some of the sessions, I mean, the session with Alan Thompson was the previous mayor of Caledon, and chief of Mrs. Swaga First Nations organization was like really good, but we were really well ahead of that for our relationship. And I said after the one session of that, why didn't they ever come to us to talk? And I have a good relationship with Roma, so I asked Robin Jones after she goes, I didn't know nothing about your community. I go, really? And it's surprising, but yet. So I brought her aware of that and, you know, the relationship we have. And she invited obviously to come down next year with Chiefs. Maybe we'll bring out the opportunity to speak with Duncan and Chief Duncan, see if there's an opportunity to meet together. But the reality is it doesn't matter. It's about reaching out to your neighbor and have a relationship built. And if you don't, go and talk to your neighbor and specifically your First Nations community neighbors and say, listen, let's get together and have a cup of coffee to start that dialogue. So not so much for us, because we're well advanced now, but other communities out there that are not necessarily, there are a lot of communities out there like that. We also had the opportunity to take another sessions. Of course, you have all your bear pit sessions, your, the premier ministers. And again, we talked a bit about it through budget, but the one big thing we've been pushing through with Noma, and I'll talk about that here, is the railway taxation. We got some good traction. Finally, they're listening. So there's some really good sessions and about the community enhancement. And there's some other sessions, obviously, that doesn't affect us, is because Roma is a lot to do with the two-tier government system, and we're not part of a two-tier government system, but it's good to understand how that works as well. The two-tier government system is simply, you have your municipal government, then you have your county governance. And then the county has a lot of money for whatever reason, I don't know where they get all their monies from, but they get a lot of money and they seem to all be very wealthy. And they all laugh and go, no, we're not, we're poor. I go, no, we're your poor cousin up here in Northern Ontario, who have no money. But it was a good session, and I think Councillor Suki got an opportunity to pick up on a lot of that, learn a lot of that as well. So Councillor Widow will probably be heading down to Emo in the summer and get a good opportunity to see how that works as well. So it's a good learning curve. Okay, Noma, we had an opportunity to speak with many ministers, and again, it's great, and we lay it online and we tell them if you're not interested, then we need to move on. And we talked about it through our budget process today. Crown land, for example, Marathon is a very small portion of within our municipal boundary. We have a big municipal boundary. We have a very small portion. So to build and to develop, we need to have the Crown, recognize that. And that's a big argument we made. In the south, they're taking private lands or sometimes green belts and converting them into housing areas. We got land, we don't have control of the land. The government does. We asked them to address that and be able to have an opportunity to develop and build within our own official plan. As we heard from the CEO, we put that in the budget to develop our official plan. We need to address that. Railway cost, as we talked a bit about budget earlier this afternoon, that's a big impact to a lot of municipalities. We spent a lot of money on the crossing enhancement. We don't believe we should be paying for that, and also the maintenance of that, as well as a kilometer per ton going through our community rather than a kilometer paid per kilometer. We want it to be by per ton. So they actually listened, and now they've set up a subcommittee with Kevin Holland out of Thunder Bay Atikokan, and another MP from Southern Ontario are going to co-chair the subcommittee to investigate how we can enhance that. We get about $37,000 a year on railway taxation. We should probably be closer to $500,000 in railway taxation minimum if it was by per ton. We've done those numbers, and it's very simple. We've talked about that before in the past, but we would be about $500,000 if we were getting by tonnage. The Ontario Road Safety, I brought that up again. Got a bit of a heated debate with Minister Rickford around this, but I drove on the highways, and so be it that I came home on Saturday from Roma, and there was an accident on our highway. Excuse me, the highway was closed. I was in Terrace Bay for 7.5 hours roughly. The impact it had not only on the death of the individual, but the roads were clear. And then, of course, in some areas, snowpack. This was well after the 12 hours, 16 hours of the storm the day before. So very, very, timing wise was unusual, but I did take an opportunity to speak to the NOMA president, and we're going to reach out to Minister Rickford on that very thing. We need to continue to have our maintenance of our roads done on a timely manner, but also compensation of the employees who work for the highway contractors be fair and equitable, so they're not leaving that going to the private sector. That's a big part of it, and so we had a great debate on that, and hopefully there'll be some traction. As you know, they made a change in the highway conditions from 16 hours to 12 hours, and Bear to center Bear to Bear, and it's not really happening in our area all the time. So we did talk about the immigration pilot program, which is the RNIP program. I don't know if you're fully aware of it, but the government has funded a pilot program to attract immigrants to the more, technical sections of our workforce. We need to widen that out to all sectors of the workforce, service sector specifically, but we need to continue to be a permanent program rather than a pilot program, a temporary program. And we need to attract immigrants to the north, period. We don't have enough people to fill those jobs, and we need to have that. But they don't want to come because they don't recognize this is a landing point. They land in Toronto's, Vancouver's, Montreal's. They're not educated on regards to there's great opportunities in north part of our province, specifically in Ontario. So we brought that, and we're hopefully get them to understand that. Then we had a major session around, and this is going to be a problem, and it's a problem everywhere in regards to the homelessness and addiction, and there's gotta be some changes in government. Government has to realize that. So in all aspects of AMO and NOMA, that, the homelessness, addictions, and mental health problem in Ontario is getting crazy, enormously big, with getting out of control. And I don't wanna use it crazy, because reality is, it's just a big problem throughout all of Ontario. How do we address it? There's many different ideas, but we're pushing back and we're trying to get it resolved. So hopefully the government takes that into consideration and puts some key aspects. We brought solutions through the Northern Policy Institute, Phenom and NOMA, and we had a paper written on it, and hopefully they'll take some of the recommendations in the paper and work with that, because we have it right here in our small little community, multiply that by many times in the bigger centers. And we took the subway in Toronto, and I have to tell you, people are afraid to take the subway in Toronto right now, and that's the only way to and from work. So when you have the main population of your city concerned about going to and from work, it's concerned. So that's it. Any questions on those? Councilor Lake?
I just, you know what, maybe more of a comment than a question to administration in particular. So when the mill went down, you built the forest management company, which at the time I said was the best thing we ever did. And then we didn't have any funding to make a senior supportive housing, so you creatively found a kind of solution to do that, and that was probably the best thing I thought we ever did. Funding the ALC and finding a way to do it through mining taxation, which doesn't happen anywhere else in Ontario. If that happens, it becomes a model for the province, and that will be the thing I'm most proud of. I just think it's really, I don't think everybody always sees the stuff that happens behind the scenes, right? The lobbying and the fact that we don't just go and put our hand out, but said, you know, here's the solution. And I just think that's really kind of exciting. And I think it's part of why I think you guys have no problem getting meetings with, you know, some of those ministries who have come to expect solutions. So I just think that that really is, if you can make that case, and if that is successful, that's a changer for every resource-based municipality in Ontario, because we've always gone from boom to bust, right? Because that money isn't ours, we don't get to bank it, goes down south, it goes to wherever. So I just, to me, that in that information you gave us is the one thing that could fundamentally change the way small resource communities function in Ontario, and that's super exciting.
You know, absolutely, Councilor. I think hats off to CAO, because, you know, considering the whole big picture of funding, and came up with the idea, let's present this as an item that we can bring to the government. Here's the thing, it's not gonna cost the mining company nothing. It's just gonna take a little bit of share of the revenue that generates through taxation and through the product extraction of the ground, and give back to the municipality of impact, which is us, build a facility that's gonna benefit all of the community and all the people using it and all the employees at the mine.
It's hard to believe nobody's ever taken that tack, nobody ever has.
So hopefully we can get some traction on that, and they understand that, and it's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
You know, the meta tax is a similar idea, but it's a little bit different because of the location of the mine. The mine's within our community. We're gonna be able to tax them through the formal municipal tax system. But this is an ideal that government doesn't always have to fork out monies from taxation indirectly through a bigger budget, where it's a direct formula-based product.
And it impacts us, that mine will, I mean, I think everybody at this table is in favor of it, but there is an impact to it,
Yeah.
right?
So I thank Mr. Skorczynski for coming up with that idea. We brought it as a lobby group, the three of us, to lobby on behalf of that. So we'll continue to focus on that and see if we can come up with some government support on that. And I think you did reach out to Mr. Mines to see if we can get a meeting with them as well, right? He does a lot of traveling. He does a lot. If you look at where he's been in the last month, he's all over the country trying to promote mining, and he's very, and he's also a previous mayor of Timmins, and he's also understanding about small business. So he's a very keen individual in the mining sector as well. So thanks. That was great. Student council report, Councilor Skorczynski. I heard, acting Mayor Lake mention that mayor always misses you students. Well, no, I'm not gonna miss you today.
I did say that.
You did say that. I was listening down there in Mexico.
Only me today, but you know, it is mid-exam week right now, so there's not much going on, like, it's just mostly students are finalizing their timetables for next semester, and especially for the grade 12s, I know a lot of people are trying to make sure that they have, all the courses they need. I know a lot of people, not just in grade 12, but throughout the school, there's a lot of co-ops going on right now, and I know a lot of people who are taking co-ops, but the major thing for a lot of students who are also student athletes is that it's NSSS season. We have the semis coming up next week, and then the finals, and then WASA and OXA. So I think that's really what's getting a lot of students through this lovely 3-hour exam we have to take almost every day, so that's really all that's going on at the moment.
So I have a question in regards to co-ops and the co-ops you talked about. So these students are in various locations throughout the municipality doing various things as co-op. Can you give us an overview of what a co-op student is? What they're doing?
I've never taken a co-op,
Okay,
so I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
exactly sure.
so, okay, so that's, I didn't want to put you on the spot. I just thought it was a good segue to understand what the co-op students do.
I was fortunate, when I was in high school, I did co-op grade 12, I believe. It was a really good program. At the time, it was Miss, Druette McDougal running it. Is she still running it?
No.
No? Okay. Anyways, yeah, so they ran that program and it gave the opportunity for the student to either do, usually it was a 2-block, sometimes if it was at the mine, it was a 4-block co-op. So you spend, your morning 3-4 hours, at that workplace. I did mine at Holy Savior School, as a teacher assistant. I'm not a teacher for that reason.
That was enough?
That was, yeah, I learned what I did not want to do, which is almost as important as learning what you want to do. But it's, it was a good, it's a really unique learning opportunity. And I've also, just with my own business too, had a few co-op students over the years as well.
Okay.
So they come in, with my profession, it's a little bit hard for them to do the work and kind of get them to do things for me, but, just getting, picking my brain, getting, teaching them different stuff. So it's a really good opportunity for students to get to learn, about the workforce and, if you are with a business owner, learning the business side of things too, how to manage a business as well as doing some of the hands-on stuff if you're doing that.
Yeah, thanks. And I know we've had them in the past, but do we?
We're gonna have a co-op student the second semester
Oh,
who was
perfect.
interested in, IT.
Oh, good. That's good. So that's what I was kind of getting at was, can we not incorporate, we did have them at the garage, I think at one point.
We haven't got it. Yeah, but we'll have one, starting in the second semester.
Good, so. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure that we understood as a council, like, I think co-op is a good program because it gets individual students understanding what's out there and what they might like or not like, as you stated, Council Suzie. Right.
If all is here, they would tell you all about their co-op they have coming up in the next
Oh, okay.
month or so.
Okay,
It just depends on like what you want your co-op in, because I know that it didn't work for my schedule and there also wasn't opportunities for like what I was interested in to go to school, but it just kind of depends on like, there's a lot of opportunities if you're gonna go to high school or work in machinery or mechanics or
right.
as a teacher, but if you wanna go into more specific things, like I'm interested in forensic science, there's not many opportunities for more specific things. So it's kind of like more of a broad range, it's more to figure out what you wanna do rather than kind of like specifically something that you're trying to do, is what I found.
So forensic scientist, maybe, Cam could then.
There you go.
Give us something in that
Everybody
regard.
reached out, there's
Nothing much?
not much.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for the report. Okay, up next, we have Sue report verbal on the presentation recommending the animal control bylaw.
Oh, yeah, so just a report for council with respect to domestic fowl. Obviously, we had a deputation in the fall of 2022 and a further report to council. And this is just an update of where we're at. So at the September 6, 2022 regular meeting of council, administration brought forward annual bylaw 1788 had not been reviewed since 2013 and was quite dated. As part of this discussion, the concept of domestic fowl was also included. Under the town's current comprehensive zoning bylaw, domestic fowl are only allowed in rural zoned areas. At this meeting, council directed administration to research and report on the allowing of domestic fowl, specifically chickens, egg-laying chickens in residential zoned areas. Administration, since that time, has researched a number of municipalities in Ontario that do allow egg-laying chickens in residential areas. And based on this research, 3 categories amongst municipalities have emerged. The first one is, some municipalities just outright don't allow it, period, or don't consider it. But for those that do allow egg-laying chickens, really 2 options are what they look at. A number of municipalities are trying pilot projects that range from 2 to 5 years that allow for chickens in residential areas. And then a review is going to be completed to see if it's going to be allowed on a full-time basis. In some municipalities, generally those that are more agricultural areas in the Southwest, do allow for the full allowance of chickens in residential areas because the communities aren't dense like like we are, or a small municipality jammed into 5 square kilometers. They're much more spread out, a lot more private property. So from a next steps perspective, been a long day with the budget. Administration will be administering a public survey in February as it relates to the allowance of chickens in residential areas to gather more public interest, concerns, as well as support as the final research step. Once this information is received and collated, administration will be bringing a full report to council for review and direction. Administration anticipates this report to come to council in early April.
Great, thanks. Any questions? Comments, Councilor?
Yeah, I think, the other piece I wonder from the administrative side is official plan is being done, and you're totally right. It's one thing to have chickens in a agriculture area, another, if you're my backyard neighbor and you've got chickens, that's gonna be a bit of an issue, but as we look at zoning, is there a way to identify areas within our municipal boundaries, in the crown land, that might fit as good places for agriculture to take place? I just think, when David was here, from the Food Collective, talking about food security, allowing some sort of agriculture or chickens, given how far away we are from our food sources, does make a lot of sense. So I just don't know if, around that OP, whether there's some work to be done there.
Yeah, it's actually the timing, not that we planned it this way, but it's worked out this way. And we have a contract planner that's gonna join us for a 6-month period to help us get rolling with the OP and the zoning bylaw update. And certainly this will be one of the considerations. Because it is, I would say becoming more popular. It's a lot more municipalities are discussing it. We heard the concept of food security. And a food bank isn't it, but growing your own food or producing your own food is. So I think the timing is right for us to look at this in 2023.
Absolutely, and I do appreciate that, and I know I talked to as many people as I could and wide ranging over the last week in Toronto. And there are a lot of municipalities that allow it, within reason, 4, 6 chickens, no roosters, blah, blah, blah. And the pilot program is good, and I think food security is number one. And I think, I have no problem with a pilot. I like the idea of a 2 to 5 year pilot and revisit it, but I think we have to open up that opportunity for residents to look at that. I don't see it being a big problem. It's happening as we speak in our community. Just people are not talking about it, and there's no complaints that are driven. And that's fine, but the reality is, well, let's get it sort of bylaw, it's actually regulated in our community. And I think that the appropriate report back, whatever that is with the administration review, is that we can look at spring, and the spring is about the time that you can start building in little cages if we approve it in the backyard. Everybody said, and that gives the opportunity for you, the residents who brought it forward, to have an understanding what the process is, because it has been a process about investigation. So I'm supportive of it, we just want to make sure we do it right.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
So thanks for that. I'll look forward to the report in the spring. And we'll make a decision then. Thanks. Up next, I got a motion on the following check runs to be approved. December 2022 check runs for the amount of accounts payable $838,793.75 and payroll amount of $209,576.32. Moved by Councilor Wheeler, second by Councilor Lake. All in favor? Thank you. Up next, we have new business. It's received from AMO regarding their annual conference scheduled for August the 20th through the 23rd. All the hotel rooms are already booked. It was put on the website on the 17th of January. And everything in the downtown corridor for about 3 kilometers is booked solid. 700 people already registered within like a day, which is amazing.
People are really travel terms.
You booked already?
We're good.
Oh, good. We got, okay. Because they were gone like poof, like all the rooms. Like I got a room as a board member, but for if anybody was attending, so.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, good. So moved by Councilor Withers, second by Councilor Lake, that the attendance of Councilor Wheeler, CAO Skorczynski, Mayor Dumas, and that was, I don't think Balance was interested.
I can follow up with Councilor.
I'll put his name.
Put his name down and it's easier to remove it as.
Okay, Suki and Lake are fine. Sorry, you're not going? No, you're not going. Okay, so we got Wheeler, Dumas, Skorczynski, and Balance, and we'll have a discussion with Councilor Balance in regards to his attendance.
And if he doesn't go, I would go.
Okay.
I haven't been in. long time.
Yeah, you haven't been for a while to,
Been a while, yeah.
Ottawa,
Yeah, this one's in London.
No, but that's, I mean.
Yeah, it's been since Ottawa, yeah. It'd be good to,
Well, I'll put your name down here and then if Counselor Balance is not there, you can attend. Okay, so, and you had booked rooms already for
We got three rooms.
Zoom. Okay, well, if we're stuck, I can take a room with the email board. I'll get notification, but find out from, looks like Council Lake will be, well, just everybody confirm.
yeah,
I can
if he
confirm
wants to
your-
go, I'm happy for him to go, but if not, I'd go.
All in favor? There, thank you. Information received from Mr. President, I get it.
Yeah, that's one item B, request for participation.
Oh, right, yeah, inspection seeking letter for support. I got it here. Motion here. The council hereby administers support, letter support to Mr. Patty Hyju, requested program funding remain in place and participation in regards to health and wellness. Further, a copy of this motion be forwarded on to the listening original request. And simply participate, just continue being healthy and participating, and why would want to cut funding for a great program? Move by. Councilor Suki, can say my council, do you have any questions? Councilor Lake, any question?
No, that was a no-brainer. I love those guys. I remember it's part of my childhood. I just think, like, you look at healthcare spending, like, the magic bullet is exercise. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah, less sugar and more exercise.
Less screen time, more movement.
Yeah.
As we all sit here on our screen.
I still got paper though. Mine's off. Anyway, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Yes, you're right, but that's just the reality of today. So we need to get out and participate a little bit better. Information received from, Mr. and Mrs. President Housing in regards to Bill 109, More Homes for Everyone's Act. And the part of that is Bill 109 and Bill 23, and that's the 1.5 million homes in 10 years. There's a lot of pushback, and as I stated earlier about the Crown land. In the south, it's about private, green space, green belts, and they're being converted to home lots by huge developers for huge money. So the reality is not gonna bring the housing cost and the housing, portfolio to the real flow. It's gonna bring it to the developers who are gonna make millions upon millions, is where we need to have, and as my part of my role in AMO, subcommittee of the housing, I said, we need to build homes that we all grew up in, which is 1,100-1,200 square foot homes, that a family of 2, 3, or 4, or 5 lived in comfortably. We didn't have 3 bathrooms and 4 fridges and 6 TVs. We had 1 of each, and, or maybe if you're lucky, you had 2 bathrooms, that was it. Oh, I didn't get much traction. So that's reality, but there are taken, so we need to do that part of the Crown land, so it's all good. Anyway, nothing else before we adjourn? Once again, I want to thank administration through the budget process, and that was a good day. We'll wait to see what some results are for our overall package and see where we're gonna go from there in regards to the budget. So, thanks for that. I will adjourn at the hour of 5 p.m. Councilor Wheeler, seconded by Councilor Lake. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night.